Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back, because today I'm going to give you guys my review for the 9th and final season of a DC show that came to a close recently that I had the chance to watch in its entirety. The Flash Season 9. Once again, the showrunner is Eric Wallace, bringing back Grant Gustin, Candice Patton, and most of the cast and crew of the recent seasons with some new faces. Let me know down below in the comment section what's your take on the final season of the show. I'd love to know that. And with that said, let's get started. Set 1 week after the events of Season 8, Season 9 follows Barry Allen and Iris West Allen as they are growing stronger than they ever have before. But when new threats emerge to destroy Central City and the legacy of the Flash, it is up to the Flash and his team to save Central City one more time. If you've watched my other videos based off of The Flash, especially my reviews for Season 7 and Season 8, you would know that I like the show. I grew up with it. I adore the earlier seasons of the series, especially Seasons 1, 2, and I found 4 to be very underrated. But I wasn't really a fan of Season 7 in any shape or form, and I thought Season 8 was just okay. Nothing bad, but nothing great either. So knowing like this is the final season of the show made me really curious to see how are they going to close things out. How is the show going to end? Not only just being the final season of The Flash, but also because it's the final season to ever come out of the Arrowverse, now that every other show got canceled or wrapped up already. And so this is the last show standing. So now that I had the chance to watch The Flash Season 9 in its entirety, I thought Season 9 was okay. It's a mixed bag of a final season with good ideas, episodes I really like, but once again, it struggles with all the things I was not a fan of in the past 2 seasons. To kick things off with the positives, I was a fan of the way the season wraps up the storyline with The Flash and Iris, with seeing how far they've grown over the course of the show since the beginning, and where the season starts with them, with the Groundhog Day episode where they're stuck in a time loop with Captain Boomerang. I thought that was a really fun premiere and a really good way to kick off the season. And the way the season ended with both those two characters, the way it left them off, I was satisfied with the end result with the Flash and Iris, to show how it's always about believing in the impossible. And just the relationship and romance between these two characters I've always loved and just grown up with. And I really liked the way Grant Gustin and Candice Patton were able to portray these characters this time and give them ending that leaves me happy with the way those two characters were left off. And then adding to that, the action sequences and the visual effects are definitely an improvement over what they've looked like in the last 2 seasons. And even though there's some goofy things with the action sequences the characters are able to do, they were still fun to watch. And I thought it was really cool to see the speedsters do their thing. They fight each other. They run across the city. It looked well done this season, to where even though it's not the best visual effects in the show, they definitely looked pretty solid for Season 9. There's some really good ideas for Season 9, especially bringing in Javicia Leslie as Red Death and Rick Cosnett returning as Eddie Thawne to become Cobalt Blue, which is something I've been wanting to see on the show for years. And it's nice to see this season bring that in to wrap things up, bring in 2 speedster characters we haven't yet encountered in that form. And although the execution to it's not the greatest, I'll get into that later, it is cool to see the season try to do things that I would want it to do before the show calls it a day. And then another thing I liked is, for not only being the final season of The Flash, but also the final season of the Arrowverse, it was really cool and well done to see how they utilize bringing in other legacy Arrowverse characters into the mix. Dreamer returns in episode 7 for an episode with Iris, and I really liked her on Supergirl, so to see her return in this episode I thought was really cool. For what it was, I thought it was good. It was a fun episode, and she was one of my favorite characters on Supergirl, and it was nice to see Dreamer alongside Iris in an episode of the season. And one of the things I was really excited to see this season was the return of Green Arrow and Diggle, because one of the things I love about early Flash was the annual crossovers with him and Green Arrow. I love the dynamic between Grant Gustin and Stephen Amell over the years, and to see him return as Green Arrow for the first time since the end of Arrow and Crisis on Infinite Earths, just to return as him one more time in episode 9 was awesome. Was it fan servicey? Absolutely.
That's a potent mix. Give me the goosebumps.
But it was effective. It was nice to show just how these two characters work so well together, how far Barry has grown as a superhero, and to see him return as Green Arrow with the action sequences, the dynamic with Barry, and even the iconic lines of dialogue.
Ramsey Rousseau, you have failed this city.
Was really awesome to watch. And it even elevates the ending of Arrow for me, because as much as I love the way Arrow ended, and so has season 8 of that show, there are aspects of it that I thought were missing by the time it ended, and I spent the last few years thinking, I wish certain things got resolved in a manner, but this episode finally fixes that issue, where Green Arrow and Diggle had a final scene with one another, and it was heartwarming to show how after everything they've gone through since Arrow, to finally see them have a proper goodbye scene, it was beautiful. And as someone that has also grown up with Arrow, that was really satisfying to see. And Bloodwork is one of the best villains on the show, and easily my favorite villain on the show from season 6 all the way to season 9. And it was nice to see him make a comeback and get a proper resolution to his story, because he's always one of those villains on the show that I've really liked. He plays a really good foe for Barry with what he wants to do, what he's capable of doing. And it was cool to see Bloodwork again in this season for the first time since season 6 ended. So on that front, it was cool to see certain characters return in the final season before the show calls it a day. And then another thing I really liked about season 9 is that even though it's not perfect, it's not great, I would not consider season 9 to be one of the best seasons of the show, there's still some fun episodes I liked here. I liked episodes 8, where Barry and Iris are stuck with other people in a location. They have to find their way out. I thought that was pretty fun. I thought the Rogue War storyline, it's a flawed storyline, but it was cool to see him team up with the Hotness and Goldface and Chillblaine to pull off a mission against Red Death. Thought that was cool. And even though, once again, like I said, it feels similar to season 8, where I don't think the season was bad, but I don't think it's great either. There's a middle point that I think season 9 also lands on for me by the time it concluded. And so season 9 is a watchable season, even though it definitely does some things better than the last 2 seasons for me. But another thing I also really appreciated is it finally brings the rivalry between Flash and Reverse Flash full circle by having our Flash finally be there to cause the night of his mother's death, which is something I've been wanting to see on the show since the beginning. Like, when was our Barry going to be the one to help cause this happen? And it's going to kickstart everything, especially because that was a fixed point. And how that's played out is effective. It's emotional, especially with seeing how the Flash has grown over the course of the show, and see how Thawne was pretty much the man that made the Flash who he is today. He got his mom killed, and then he got stuck in the present for him. And then adding to that mix, it's just really full circle, and I love it a lot. It just feels like early Flash to me, and it was exciting, it was emotional, it was amazing to finally bring the night of his mom's death full circle, and to show just how much the Flash has changed over the course of the 9 seasons. With all that said, as much as there are things about the season I do like, and I do not think this is the worst season to come out of the show, I still have plenty of frustrations with season 9. And the first thing to kick it off with is the graphic novel approach. I do not think served a great purpose in this season, because it's shorter, it's 13 episodes, and it feels like we're doing exactly what was in season 6, 7, and 8, but there's a much shorter time window to do all of this in, where there's the first arc that kicks off the season, a bunch of interlude episodes in the middle, and then the second arc happens at the end of it. And it didn't work that much this season, purely because it's so short, where because there are really good ideas on display with Red Death and Cobalt Blue, the negative Speed Force, I do not think they were able to flesh out all of these storylines in time. There are ideas there where if the season was like 20 episodes, then I could have expected this to be maybe even better. But because it was so short, we had, once again, rushed villains, rushed development, not enough impact or memorable moments from those characters. And then adding to that, it feels like rather than serving as the final season of The Flash, it just feels like your average Flash season that doesn't really feel like the end until the last couple of episodes happen. And that's a disappointment because I really wish the season had an overarching storyline, especially because it was the last one and that it was so short. And I don't think trying to repeat what the last two seasons did was the best idea to do for season 9. And that also leads me to the fact that just like the last few seasons, they focus a lot on the side characters to the degree where it overshadows Barry himself.
It's so dumb.
Oh, it's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
Where as much as I do like characters like Chester per se, and I don't mind Chillblaine, I don't think what they did with them this season was all that compelling. Chester this season was reduced to being Cisco 2.0, and then they bring back something with him in the fold that feels left field for me. And they paired Chester and Allegra together as a relationship. And while I don't mind Allegra as much this season as I did the others, I still don't think she's just that interesting of a character. And then the other character I just was not a fan of the season was Cecile, where I like Cecile in the earlier seasons. I did really enjoy her there, but once season 7 happened, her character just became kind of annoying, and they're repeating the exact same questions with her as if her being a superhero, her being a wife to Joe, and is she a good mom? And it's just frustrating when the answers are pretty blatantly obvious that it's like, well, hate to say it, she is a bad mom, because the show in the last few seasons forgot that she's a mom, and they didn't bring back Jenna until an episode of this season. And her character just all of a sudden learning how to do all these things feels like we're trying to turn the show from being The Flash to being the Cecile show. And I really liked Cecile when she was a side character, but now they gave her way too much focus that her character this season came off as annoying. And it's nothing against the actress. I like her. It's just the way she was written and utilized this season just felt really odd to me, considering this is the final season of The Flash, and giving the side characters this much screen time and doing what they're able to do feels like a really odd and bizarre choice to have the final season of the show play out. And another thing that was also really frustrating to me was Keone, where I did not think episode 2 was a good episode. I thought it just had the team act really out of character to what happened to Caitlyn. And I thought they did not utilize her very well at all. And as much as I really like Danielle Panabaker on the show, I didn't feel like after season 5, it feels like the show is struggling to give her something to do. And so they came up with a third character for her to play. And Keone is my least favorite of the 3 characters she has portrayed, mainly because of the way she's written.
No! Supposed to go.
She plays off as a goddess deus ex machina character where she's able to do everything pretty much. And it's just so uninteresting because it feels like this is something we could have just given Caitlyn. And I wish they continued to show how does she move forward in a day and age where Frost passed away in season 8 because of what happened with Deathstorm. And I just was not interested in Keone as the season went on. I had my moments with Keone that I liked at first, but then the more the season went on, the less I liked Keone. And then another thing about the season 2 is, as much as the ideas with Red Death and Cobalt Blue were pretty cool, they did not execute them very well. I like Javicia Leslie as Ryan Wilder as Batwoman, but the way she was utilized this season feels really underwhelming to me. And granted, there wasn't much about Red Death to begin with, so the season didn't necessarily make me dislike Red Death. But the way they utilize her character left a lot to be desired. There's a lot of scenes from Red Death that came off as very over-the-top and goofy, repeating iconic Batman lines.
Yeah, this lights out! Now you want to get nuts! Come on! Let's get nuts.
But you want to get nuts?
Come on. Let's get nuts. vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman.
I am vengeance.
And the way that whole storyline with her was resolved, I thought was definitely something that left a lot to be desired. And as cool as it was to see Rick Cosnett return as Cobalt Blue, I also thought, once again, this could have been a whole season right here. The whole season could have been about Cobalt Blue, and I thought that would have been awesome, especially because the last couple of moments in Season 8, you see the Cobalt Blue gem, and it made us think that, oh, they're going to do it, but not really till the final 4 episodes. And it's another thing why I wish they didn't go into this graphic novel approach, because it just rushes things. And what they do with Cobalt Blue, I actually like. Just him discovering how is he alive, discovering what his destiny now is. I really like that a lot. There's some really interesting ideas there that I actually didn't mind. But the way it's presented and then the way that whole thing wrapped up was really disappointing to me, because this was something I wanted to see for a while, but I did not think they presented it in a way that was deserving of the great ideas at hand with it. Now getting into the spoilers of The Flash Season 9, and like I said before, I don't think this is a bad season. I thought the season was perfectly watchable, even though it's very flawed. I thought the Rogues, the new iteration of the Rogues, I thought was cool, where I wish we got to see the original Rogues earlier in the seasons together. But it was cool to see this iteration of Captain Boomerang and them team up with Red Death. And even just the Rogue War storyline, I thought was a goofy story arc, but I thought it was enjoyable to a degree. I liked seeing villains like Goldface and Chill Blaine, who was really more of just an ally of the Flash by that point. And so as Hotness and the Flash team up with Pied Piper. I thought that was fun. Again, not a great story arc, but it was just fun to see Flash work with these characters to pull off a heist. It reminded me of their version of Ocean's 11 to a degree. And Cobalt Blue, what I liked about his storyline was it's about him discovering why is he alive again. Because last time we saw Eddie in the present, he shot himself to erase Reverse Flash from existence and save Barry. And his body went into the singularity. And it's cool to see that pay off, where it turns out that Eddie Thawne was revived and resurrected by the negative speed force, and he came out as a different person until he finds out, once he got struck by lightning, like he's chosen by the negative speed force to be the new Avatar after the annihilation of Reverse Flash at the end of Season 8. So I thought that was cool, but I did wish, once again, it was a full storyline, just because I like Rick as his character. I liked him this season, and I thought what they do with Cobalt Blue feels like it deserved so much better than it got in the end. And then another thing with the season they brought in was, in the series finale, they brought in Reverse Flash, Zoom, Savitar, and Godspeed. That was something I was really excited to see, because they're Flash villains, and Reverse Flash and Zoom, two of the best villains on the entire show. They got Tom Cavanaugh, Teddy Sears back. And the way those 4 villains were utilized, they had a good dynamic with one another. Just seeing them bounce off each other was really cool. Seeing them for the very first time in the same room. But I thought the way they were utilized was easily the most disappointing aspect of that series finale, because they didn't feel like they played out in action the way they would if this was, say, Season 3. And so I was really underwhelmed with them. It feels like they were kind of thrown in there just for the fan service sake of it. And they didn't get to do as much in the finale as I would have liked. And it's a bummer, because the way they were disposed of, the way they were utilized once they were brought into the battle, I was really disappointed, considering these were big villains who really caused a lot of danger for the crew and the Flash himself, that they were disposed of really easily, and I wish that wasn't the case. And I wish the Flash actually got a final scene with each of them, rather than the team disposes of the crew and the Flash just deals with Cobalt Blue himself. Something that made me really happy in the end, even though I still really didn't like this decision the season went into, was that Caitlyn is brought back after Keone leaves, where ever since they brought in Keone, they made us think Caitlyn was dead, and I thought that was a really awful thing to do for her character. It just felt like the team didn't care that she passed away, And the same episode, at the end of that very episode when they discovered she was alive, it turned out how they went partying in the end. I thought that felt very wrong for them to do. So to have Keone leave and Caitlyn comes back was so nice to see, because I really did not like how they treated Caitlyn. And although I still don't like what they did, it's something that softened the blow that Caitlyn is brought back to us again after the events of the season have took place. But for Barry as a character in the last couple of episodes, I really liked it a lot. Obviously, legacy is a big theme of season 9. And another thing I like is Barry and Iris finally give birth to Nora in the present, which I thought was a really sweet way to end off their story on the show, where they saved the day. And the way Barry and Cobalt Blue storyline ended was not inherently bad or anything. This is probably the one time over the course of the show where I understood why. There was the pep talk of Barry trying to talk Eddie out of what he's doing. But once again, I think the execution left a lot more. Their fight between the two was really short, and it feels very anticlimactic for this whole arc being really rushed into just 4 episodes. But I did think the way it ended could have been better, because they didn't feel like he was as much of a big threat to them to really give the sense of payoff to it. But the finale just shined the most when it's focusing on the stuff that isn't about the Cobalt Blue storyline or the action set pieces, where Barry and Iris finally give birth to Nora. That was really sweet. To have them celebrate the birth of Nora and the fact that they once again saved Central City, I really like that a lot. And even in part 1 of this 4-part finale, seeing Barry have a proper goodbye to his parents, I thought was beautiful. Just to show how far he has grown over the course of the show, and with all the trauma he's gotten since then, with the death of his mom at the hands of Reverse Flash, and even his father dying at the hands of Zoom in season 2. So that I thought was beautiful, and it left me off with a really good note with Barry Allen, where Barry decides to give his power to 3 new characters who in the comics were actually speedsters, like Max Mercury, Avery Ho, and Jess Chambers. I thought that was cool. And just having the final scene of the show be Flash narrating to Nora about him being a superhero and always believing in the impossible, and he just runs through Central City one last time in the suit. That was a sweet way to end the season. Overall, while I had plenty of frustrations with Flash Season 9 and repeated a lot of my problems with the last few seasons, I won't deny this season did have me enjoying aspects of it. It definitely ended on a note where, even though it was flawed and could have been better than it was, it did leave me somewhat satisfied with the way the storyline with the Flash came to a close this season. So was it a top-tier Flash season? No. But it was not the worst the show has ever had. So in the end, I'm going to give The Flash Season 9 a B-. I can't believe The Flash is over now. There's no new season after this. I've been watching the show ever since Season 1 premiered, and I love those early seasons. I love Grant Gustin as his character, and I'm really going to miss watching him as The Flash once the fact that this show's officially over. And despite the bumps across the road, the high highs and the low lows of the show, I'm gonna miss it. I really do. This and Arrow are the Arrowverse shows I love the most, and even though I've had a lot of problems with the last few seasons of the show, and I do wish they were a lot stronger for the show as a whole, I did appreciate moments of it, episodes I did actually enjoy. And while the finale could have been stronger, I did like the way it ends the story of the Flash and these characters. So it's not perfect, definitely sadly one of my least favorite seasons of the show, but it's definitely not the worst the show has to offer. So it has its high highs, it has its low lows. It definitely has the aspects of the Flash I tend to know over the course of the last couple of years, but I definitely will miss watching the show week to week. And if you're a fan of The Flash and The Flash TV show, definitely check out Season 9 just to see how the show comes to a close. Not one of the best seasons, but definitely not the worst either. But if there's one thing that's for sure, it's believe in the impossible, and that I am definitely going to miss watching a new season of the show. So yeah, that's my review for The Flash Season 9. What are your thoughts on the season? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Stay tuned for some upcoming videos I have planned very soon. Soon I'm going to be seeing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which I'm so excited to see. And I hope you guys will stay tuned for all that fun stuff coming your way very soon. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go do that while you're at it. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.